Welcome, Dr. Boris, to the ClarITea Chat. Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so welcome everyone to this version of the ClarITea Chat. I have Dr. Boris Piwinger with me. You have read the introduction of him on LinkedIn, so I will not bore you again with that. But just to sum up, Dr. Boris is a mathematician, business consultant, IT consultant, and now an IT leader. He was a math researcher when he U-turned into becoming a consultant at AT Kearney. He consulted from procurement to IT security to IT strategy. Incidentally, he has visited Jamnagar once to consult for Reliance. He heads the global IT portfolio and innovation at Ottobock, and he's also its IT head for Austria. Ottobock is a global market leader in prosthetics and orthotics with over euro 1 billion in turnover and 8,000 plus employees in 50 countries. Ottobock invests over 9% of its turnover in R&D. So, Dr. Boris, maybe quick look into what Ottobock does for our audience.
Sure, absolutely. So the core products of Ottobock, which you might be familiar with or have heard about, are prosthetics, in particular for lower limb, with the knee joints as the key component, but also upper limb with hands and these kind of devices. But also we are working in orthotics, so basically helping people with some form being paralyzed to be able to walk again without a wheelchair. So these kind of products, if you want to Google that, it would be called a C-brace, for example. Very interesting product for sure. But also we are working intensely in the area of patient care itself. And also in India, we have quite a number of clinics there to basically help the patients directly with our products.
Thank you, Dr. Boris, for that introduction to Ottobock's products. So I met Dr. Boris on LinkedIn a few months back. We instantly connected with common themes of having experimented with multiple roles in our career, a bit of adventure. I do trekking, and Dr. Boris has done apnea diving, and we'll ask him about it. And loads of common thinking about how technology transforms organizations, and we will talk about these today. Welcome, Dr. Boris, to this edition of ClarITea Chat. Before we go further, here is a quick recap of the purpose of ClarITea Chat for anyone who's first time on this. I hope, Dr. Boris, you can see the presentation?
Not yet. Here it comes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so for everyone who's first time on this, quick peek into the purpose of ClarITea Chat. This is a discussion over a cup of tea on everything IT. This is a LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live show. Now, the key theme that we cover here is that only 17% of technology investments deliver on expected ROI. I've heard questions from audience and my friends on this. So I want to differentiate that maybe a majority of technology programs are successful in terms of receiving sign-offs and everybody getting paid. But this is a research that Vijay Ramchandran does every year for the last 25 years. And this is about the expected ROI that you put in the business case getting achieved after the project has been delivered. So that rate is only 17%. Now, let's understand, what are the factors which contribute to it. So the first thing is the complexity. Every function is at a crossroad of the processes and the industry. For example, finance for manufacturing, finance for banking, finance for process industries. Whereas in technology, you have to cut across all the business processes because everybody is in the organization is your customers. So you need to know about all the functions and processes. And on top of that, everything that IT does touches people somewhere or the other. And that just increases the complexity of how to get success with IT. The second factor that probably contributes to this low ROI success with the technology is that it's a nascent management function. All the other functions are, maybe hundreds of years old, whether it's finance or manufacturing, since the industrial age started. Technology as a function came out of the closet only about 30 years back when ERPs and all started coming and started impacting business functions. And if you ask me digital, it's just about 10 years old. Now, that gets further accentuated by the high incremental margins in technology, which leads to intense sales and marketing efforts. So anytime there's intense competition and all kinds of arguments coming from everyone, and it's a very, very sophisticated sales and marketing engines working out there. And here is the last thing, which is the asymmetry of talent. So 95% plus of the technology talent is on the supply side, whether it's technology product companies or the technology system integrators, and coupled with the intense sales pitches, it just makes it more and more difficult for the IT buyers to get success with technology. So here is the summary for you. 17% of IT investments reaching ROI success, multidimensional complexity of managing technology in an organization. IT is a nascent function, intense sales and marketing coupled with asymmetry of talent between the buyers of IT and the sellers of technology. So all of this put together, kind of create the backdrop for the ClarITea Chat, which is learning from leaders. Given that it's a nascent function, managing IT is an art, as the science is not fully disseminated. I'll make a difference here. There's a lot of science out there, a lot of research out there. It's not fully disseminated in terms of formal courses and degrees and all of that. So this art of managing IT with multiple complexities and whatever factors we talked about is learned from accomplished artists, which are CIOs and thought leaders. And these are through discussions on leadership principles to achieve positive ROI. And these are informal chats on real questions in IT management and success, answered by CIOs and leaders over a cup of tea. So that sets us up for our chat with Dr. Boris Piwinger. So, Dr. Boris, welcome to this experience sharing, decoding the art of finding ROI with technologies. Please share your life story with us, calling out key inflection points which reveal to you the first principles of creating success.
Yeah, well, actually, what did me take on that journey here? So maybe I'll start in school time, when for the longest time I was very much convinced I would study economics and law and move into a banking career. But somehow towards the end of my school time, I had a fantastic math teacher in school, which is probably exceptional because most aren't that convincing. And he said something which I really took over for myself. He said, I practice mathematics for the sake of understanding. And I think this is a very powerful statement. And it's probably as abstract as mathematics itself, but it makes you really feel what mathematics is all about. So that's why I then decided, okay, I should better go into a direction which suits my personal type of thinking, if you wish. So I went into mathematics. More specifically, I ended up in mathematical logic, or even more specific, in axiomatic set theory, which is probably as pure in mathematics as it gets. And in other words, that put me very deep or high, however you see that, in the ivory tower. So I really felt being in that ivory tower. So just to contrast that a little bit, during my studies, I also studied some physics, which is definitely getting you a touch of the real world in some sense, even though probably not that real as in the business. But anyway, so that was a little bit of contrast, but also I spent a little bit of time in politics. At the time I was still living in Germany, and we basically founded the very first virtual party organization in Germany. And that was in a time, and I also worked for a member of parliament then, when the German parliament created the world's first internet law. So that was a very interesting time when technology really became visible to the larger society. So a good time to be in politics. I left it a few years later, but I think that was a good experience, which also brought me a little bit towards the IT topic in a sense. But then at some time, basically in the meantime, I had moved to Vienna to do my PhD there. And then I had to take a decision, should I stay in science for good or I do something else? And my decision was basically do the absolute U-turn, leave the ivory tower. And well, what do you do if you have started pure mathematics, which means you have, if you wish, no clue about the real world, and how you get basically really the jump in the deep end of the business world? Well, you do management consulting. So I did. I joined A.T. Kearney. And that was the right decision for me. I learned quite a bit. I've seen almost any industry out there in the world. I've seen very different functional topics, but also I embraced what really defines A.T. Kearney. And that is something the founder, Tom Kearney, had said. He defined it as our success as consultants will depend upon the essential rightness of the advice we give and our capacity for convincing those in authority that it is good. And this principle of essential rightness is, I think, a very strong principle. And I think I follow that in all I'm doing. So for me, it's super important, not only in my time as a consultant, but also now in IT management, to really do the right things. So that's, you ask for defining moments. Well, not a moment in this point, but more a general learning from the culture of A.T. Kearney. So I did that for a while, and at some points, well, after 14 years in my case, then it's time to do the real thing. I mean, as a consultant, you get in, you do something, you get out before you see the results materializing. And that is something you want to have sooner or later for most people. And in my case, it was late, but still there. So I decided then to see if the grass is greener on the other side. And so I moved into industry with Ottobock, where I am today. And I had developed the IT strategy, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And then started with the implementation of it, and now moved on to the IT portfolio and innovation part. Yeah, that's where I'm today, and this is how I got there.
Oh no, that's great. And Dr. Boris, I'm imagining, you standing on top of an ivory tower and jumping deep, into the consulting, and then after swimming for a while, say no, I want to go deeper and get the real pearls out of it. So go deeper into the business. Okay, so that's my mind doing some visualization, but I really love the fact that I practice mathematics for the sake of understanding. Reflecting, even I love mathematics, and my attitude also has been moving from one function to another, and different challenges. It has been more like why something happens. So try to understand how the world works or how everything works, Coming back to mathematics, yeah, I think that does instill that attitude in you. So I'm just connecting that probably it was maths that did it to me as well. Um, yeah, I really like the outcome of own recommendations and decisions, owning those. So let me move then to the next part of our chat. So, Dr. Boris, you were a consultant for most of your life. I'm sure you would have seen some customers engage you for driving phenomenal transformation, and some customers where you could not deliver the value that you wanted to. So, what were the major differences that you found in the approach of your customers? Maybe just talk through, one good experience and a bad experience. And this is like, I want to help our audience here understand, how to leverage, the experts and the consultants better.
Yeah, I think really the secret sauce of AT Kearney was really to be super hands-on and immerse deep into an organization. And this differentiates Kearney from most of the other consultancies, I believe. So when we developed the IT strategy for a chemical company, we had literally spoken to every single business function they have, much more to the business than we had spoken with IT people, actually. And so by doing so, we made sure we really aligned the outcome of our work already with all the key stakeholders in the organization, just to avoid the not invented here syndrome, which actually kills a lot of consulting engagements out there in the world. So I think that's the secret sauce which made it very successful. But if we look on, okay, when things don't go that well, and honestly speaking, that has been a super exception and not a 50-50 or something. I do remember an engagement with a CFO of a machine building company in that case. And just to cut it short, that guy wanted us to just create justification for the decision already taken and not asking for the right or the essential right, if you wish, advice here. And that really didn't work out that well, and we ended prematurely, and both sides haven't been happy with that. So that's, I think, really the stark contrast to the typical situation where we managed to work with the organization. But also, it is the element of taking your stand in the right time. So when you follow the essential rightness, sometimes you have to fight against some resistance, and some of them you have to accept. I mean, each organization is different, and sometimes you need to accept that things are how they are and you can't change everything. But there are those where you really need to take that stand. And I basically remember two situations. Both have been information security engagements, interesting enough. So they seem to be very enthusiastic here. And one was when a middle management guy who was kind of offended by us being there in the first place, messing with his area of responsibility. And he really called me out in front of his team of 20 plus people. And well, I was pretty sure that our thoughts were right. So that was really standing in the fire, being grilled, and staying calm and let him burn down, and then basically make your point. And at the end, that earned us quite a bit of respect. And I think finally we could convince at least most of the team. Never expect to get everyone. And the other example was with a CIO. In such an engagement, and well, even in security engagements, it can become operational. And even though we didn't run the operations, but we were essentially steering them, there was a major incident, and guess what? He badly grilled me, and I mean, actually he was right. So what should I say? So I let him go, and after several minutes, took forever, it felt, he basically calmed down a bit, but I could convince him that we would fix the issue and we would have a plan to get out of the situation, and we did, actually. So that's another thing where you have to basically stand the heat and find a way to define your way out, and always be prepared for whatever happens, and have a solution. And I think that's what you learn as a consultant. You always need to have a solution.
Yeah. So I think some good takeaways from this. For example, you have to leverage the consultants for what they bring to the table, and not for not for pushing your agenda, in which case it is bound to fail, because eventually what's most important is that whatever you are doing, whatever you're bringing consultants for, it has got some buy-in in the organization. The other one, I think, is a example, or is a good lesson for everyone. When you talk that for building an IT strategy, you met many more business functions than IT itself. And I think that's, the core of what I also spoke, that, IT needs to travel the entire length and breadth of the organization, because everyone is the customer. So whether you're doing it yourself as an IT leader, or whether you're doing it with a consultant, but it's very important to understand what everyone in the organization wants, and then build your strategy and plans around it. Again, the message, don't sit in the ivory tower. And I think very importantly, in both the examples that you gave towards the end, sometimes we hold the consultants accountable for what they are not accountable for, or we just went out on them, and I think that's, you handled it supremely well. But I think the right way to do that is to to respect the competence that you did, when you stood your ground and did not budge. And then also, I think when the person was unreasonably firing you because of an operational issue. So anyway, so good learnings, Dr. Boris. Let me come to my next area that I'm interested in. How are you transforming IT at Ottobock? How are you approaching technology transformation? So tell us how you went about it, and what kind of learnings are you bringing from your consultant career into this, and how is it being? You of course talked about how owning the outcomes, going the whole hog with whatever you are consulting. You have to convert it into action plans. So what is different from your consultant career into this IT leadership role?
Well, I'm not sure if that's all that different. You're just suddenly becoming accountable for certain things, and you are, of course, getting in touch with a lot of topics which you will not see as a consultant. But I think here the thing is very interesting. So when I developed the IT strategy together with the then later CIO of Ottobock, I was still working as a consultant for AT Kearney. So with a very small team, just myself and a junior colleague, we worked with 80 plus people on the Ottobock side, and more than 2/3 of those have been on the business side. And I think that's very similar to the chemical example I gave earlier. So we really wanted it to be business driven. And so actually what we call an IT strategy more correctly is a business transformation by means of technology here. And this is then what we also implemented, or are still working to implement. It's not all complete yet. but we wanted to make sure it's deeply embedded in the business organization. So the first activity we had started of the IT strategy is founding a business process management department outside IT, actually, which should help all the other business functions to align their processes and get them to a new level. And we would work on the IT side to complement this. So that's a very good hand-in-hand way to work with the business department. It's also, we are working in such a way that for most of the business initiatives, we are actually having the respective department leaders on the business side leading that project. So I think that's also an important thing. Don't try to solve all the world's problems from IT alone, but make sure you do it together with the right business people. And yeah, I think doing so, we are now really building a new digital core here, which means a new application landscape. But of course, also we are doing some IT internal things from governance to processes, but also down to infrastructure, which would then support this digital core in the future.
Yeah, so this is very interesting, Dr. Boris, and like connects with my own experiences. You talked about digital core, building a digital core. Tell us a little bit more about it. What does this core consist of?
So, of course, Ottobock still largely is a manufacturing company, but as I said as well, it's a patient care organization. So we are basically having manufacturing and service industries in ourselves together. And what we are really structuring here is a set of leading applications centered around an ERP system with some PLM, HR system, manufacturing system, and the like, and really trying to harmonize with these applications the business processes, harmonizing data structures, bringing it all into a consistent flow. And also, and I think that's pretty typical for family-owned mid-sized companies, which have grown rapidly over the last couple of decades, that you have so many applications which are redundant and just local, and we are trying to harmonize that as we move forward, and really therefore generating this harmonization, which will speed up all the processes from logistics up to finance, if you wish.
Okay, no, that's really insightful, and sort of somewhere resonates with what I had done when we started digital transformation. Was about first building that digital foundation. So if digital transformation is a 50-story building, typically, as you said, in a family-owned business, typically the IT spawns in different parts and various discrete systems. It's, I would say, a foundation for a 4-story building. You can't build a 50-story building on that foundation. So you really need to revamp it, reinvent it, take a process-based approach to connect these systems, maybe modernize some of them, modernize your infrastructure. And I really liked the concept that you brought out of building a digital core. So before you go for all the, latest in the market terms in doing your IT, I think we first need to build that digital core. So very, very important aspect. And the other thing that I really noticed was, you're talking about, setting the IT house in order in terms of governance, governance processes and all of that. And again, I again picked up on your previous one, which is going and talking to all the business functions, understanding what they want, and then building your strategy on top of that. And another one is like, putting the division head or the head of the function in charge of that transformation instead of IT trying to do everything. So I think these are some really good takeaways that I see, Dr. Boris. Now, it's interesting to see that you have a symbiotic relationship between CIO and CDO. In our previous chats, we have discussed about the whole uh, conundrum or confusion around having a CIO under a CDO, or a CDO under a CIO, or a CDO who takes care of everything, or a CIO who takes. So all kinds of permutations and combinations have been out there in the market. And when I was talking to you last time, it was nice and refreshing to see that that both the functions are there and working very harmoniously together. So talk to us about what are the roles and responsibility, what kind of collaboration mechanisms are there, and how both of you are taking the organization forward. Both IT function and the digital function take the organization forward.
Yeah, so basically, when we developed that IT strategy, at the same time, we developed a so-called digital agenda. So there was a joint project, and early on, the decision was taken to split those two functions, where IT would essentially take care of all the internal Ottobock functions, digitizing processes and all the things I described before, while the CDO would really work on new business models, in particular working closely with our customers, which are patient care providers, clinics and the like. And that is then really a new thing outside the line organization, while IT really has to move the heavy ship, if you wish. And in the end, IT always has to make sure that the IT operation works. Yeah, and there is, of course, that risk of IT. If it fails, everybody will notice. If it works, nobody notices. Yeah? And that's a different playing field than the more adventurous CDO side, where you try completely new things. And since it's so new, failure is a different thing as holding up your operations, stopping your manufacturing, stop delivering goods, etc. That's a whole new thing. Right? So I think that's really the slower and bigger thing on the IT side, and the more dynamic thing on the CDO side. And they are basically pretty free in what they do, little limitations only. But in the end, we are providing some common infrastructure, etc. Yeah? So that's the link. And of course, we are exchanging ideas for sure. But basically, it's an independent organization.
Okay, no, that's interesting to note, and I really liked what you said about the failure. I mean, the experimentations and the failures. So while IT provides that solidity, or that operational resilience for the entire organization, the digital organization, which is like trying to put various bets, trying to do experiments, and just in case something fails, that's okay, because they need to do those experiments, right? So at this point, I'm requesting everyone to ask your questions. I do see some comments out there. There's an interesting comment about consultants. Maybe I'll respond to that. But guys, all our listeners, so if you want to ask any questions to Dr. Boris or me, please do that. Except Manish, I need a job, please help me. Please put that as a personal message on the chat, on my chat, instead of on this live. So, but before we go on to the questions, Dr. Boris, I had parked this for time availability. So let me ask you, since we do not have many questions out there. Talk to us about your apnea diving experience. What is it like? How do you prepare for it? And what really pulled you towards that?
Well, I would say it happened by accident. So I've been scuba diving before, and we were in Egypt preparing for a night dive, waiting for the sun go down. So someone just brought a newspaper saying that a famous German free diver would come to the area to do some training for new world records. And I was joking, well, probably I can hold my breath for like 20 seconds if I stretch. And we had a good dive teacher on board, and he said, okay, sun isn't down anyways, so let's give it a try. And we started, and I somehow managed a minute, which is just nothing, but at least it was beyond my expectations. So a couple of days following in the hotel pool, I tried more and more and brought it to 2.5 minutes, which is still nothing, but just trying for myself. I think that was getting me a bit excited about it. So I did an apnea diving course then, and went to training sessions and extended that still only for a level which is okay, but far away from any professionals or people who would go to competitions. Never did it that far, but just did it more for fun. So in a way, it is like snorkeling on steroids, if you wish. So instead of going 5 meters down, you go 20 or so meters down, and for longer, and these kind of activities. So so it was more of a bit fun trying it out and learning how to relax the body in a way which allow you to consume less oxygen, and therefore hold your breath longer and stay longer, and it calms you down during diving. And I think that's the nice experience. And also, of course, it's kind of the real thing. If you dive without equipment, it's a very natural thing. So that's kind of a cool experience, but again, never made it to any professional levels in that area.
Well, that's fine. But what is it like, going 20 meters down, where I think the atmospheric pressure is like, I think 2 times what it is when we are right now. And
well, actually, 20 meters are 3 times the surface
3 times,
pressure already.
Yeah.
It's getting you to kind of 3 bars down there, and I think my best was 25.7 or so meters. My single best attempt. But actually, it's totally different from scuba diving. With scuba diving, you are breathing compressed air, and that adjusts to the pressure outside. And that's the difference, as you just said. If you just go down on a single breath, you don't change that. So your body just gets compressed. In particular, those areas where normally you have air in. So basically, the lung, I mean, in the head, there's also air, but that you can't compress the head, to be honest. The skull wouldn't love that, I guess. So it's essentially the lung getting heavily compressed there, but it's on that level not as bad. There are people who go down way beyond 100 meters. That's a different story and requires way more professionalism than I ever could have achieved myself.
Yeah, so I should share with you, after you told me about the apnea diving, I really got interested. What is this apnea diving? And I started doing some Googling around it, and what I came to know was like really awe-inspiring. I mean, I think it was a Russian lady who was really a pioneer in that, and it's unfortunate that she got lost at sea while she was diving, just for fun without any support and all. But it really opened a new area of knowledge to me. So we have started getting some comments here, Dr. Boris. So Surya mentions that all of us have had one teacher who has changed our career path. Glad that Dr. Piwinger recognized and acknowledged this. Great discussion. So any other teacher? Anything else which you remember?
Well, thanks, Surya, for bringing that up. I really think there are those few things which you can remember for your life, and I think that math teacher has been one. And of course, in consulting, you meet quite a few people on the consulting side, which influence you heavily, and you learn a lot from them. But it's more the combination of various people here, not that single one. But I think that Tom Carney sentence about the essential rightness is a very important one for myself still, now that I left the company. But as they say, once Carney, always Carney. So it changes the way you think to some extent. So that's definitely an important one. But definitely many more things. It's more the smaller things in life, and oftentimes it's not that single thing you can cite here, which is it, but it's a combination of what you learn from your parents, your teachers, your colleagues, sometimes your competitors and others.
Yeah. So there's one, the first comment coming from Patsati, the ones who solve the information constipation in any system at any level they engage are called consultants. I think I have seen this actually. I want to respond to that because I have handled this. Yeah, what used to happen in the organizations earlier was that information always used to be a domain, or you can say ownership of each and every department. Everybody carried their own information in their silos, and there was not a free flow of information. And I think one of the things that I wouldn't say only consultant, but even the technologists that they do is they basically break these silos and help the free flow of information for everyone to take good decisions. Now,
Yeah, I think you said something very important here, breaking the silos. If you talk about information or data, it's really, you need to think from one end to the other, and that doesn't stop at department boundaries. And that is really the key thing you need to change in any organization which works in silos, as most do. If that's called a consultant, I don't know. Oftentimes it's his consultants who come in here, but you can call them as you like. But I think that needs to be one of your core principles to follow that path.
Absolutely. So there's another question here from Vijay. He asked that after background in something as demanding as mathematics, how do you keep yourself updated? Any recommendations on courses?
Easy answer, no. I think really, if you look at my career, I haven't learned IT in a way that I studied it, I took courses or something. I learned it on the go, if you wish, and consulting, management consulting, that is, not technology consulting, that works differently. But management consulting, you are basically getting into projects where you have not the full comprehensive knowledge. And with every project you do, you gain experience, you learn new concepts. There are always more senior people somewhere in the organization around you, which help you to just learn a new thing. And well, when you do your first IT strategy, you have no clue what to do, but someone has a framework how to do it, gives you a hint, and then you bring in what you know, and you learn on the go. And I think if you follow people in IT management, there are oftentimes not that obvious or straight careers, but people who have learned it on the street, if you wish. Yeah, it's and not at university oftentimes. So I don't think it's courses. Of course, it's not wrong to read a book on one or the other topic, certainly I've read one or the other, but not many, to be honest. I think the one book I learned most about IT was, I think the English title is The Phoenix Project, where you talk about DevOps. And I think that book really changed my way of thinking. But no, I didn't take a lot of courses.
Okay. Yeah, in fact, that is again, one of the themes that I talk about in the ClarITea Chat purpose, that there aren't enough, the subject is new, there aren't enough university courses, there aren't enough professors who will tell you how to manage all the complexities of technology best. And therefore, you have to learn from people who have done it before. So very important, it becomes very important, and I think you would agree, Dr. Boris, to network with the leaders and to keep connected with how people are solving problems with technology. And I liked your approach where you said that there will always be a problem that we would have to solve. And as a leader, I think we have to look for what are the best tools and what are the best methods to solve that problem, and just go around and figure that out, because you won't always have ready-made knowledge for the same. Yeah. But that was a great question. Now we have another question coming from Tapasi. What traits are important for being a good IT leader?
Well, if you follow my experience, and I'm super biased, obviously, yeah, from my own experience, but I hope that's what you want to hear from me. I came from top management consulting, and I first worked in the operations practice of AT Kearney, and not in IT. I joined IT several years into consulting. Yeah? So I've seen the other side, and I think that's key. If you understand what business really is about and business needs, then you can answer how to provide the right IT to support the business. If you just understand technology and you don't understand your customers, i.e. the business departments, you will never manage to really deliver value to the organization. And I think that's the key thing, which is specific to, as you say, IT leader. Everything else about leadership, I think, is not different for an IT leader and any other leader in the organization. But I think that's that one thing I would call the most important one.
Yeah. I would second you on that, Dr. Boris, that you need to know your business, you need to know your customers, and so I've had many incidences where a business leader comes to my office and says that here's my problem and I want to solve it, and I would say, what, first I want to visit your place. So I remember this incident where this was a problem about tools calibration in a manufacturing company. There are like some, I don't know, thousands of tools, and there has to be a calibration schedule for them. Something is once a month, something is once in 3 months, and so on. And then you need a complete orchestration mechanisms to get them back, get them calibrated, something inside, something outside. Lead times are there, and then you have to build a buffer and all of that. And I did not give them a solution, and I said, listen, I want to first visit you and understand how it happens. So I visited them, spent maybe about 2 hours just looking at various calibration equipment, what were their existing processes, what kind of forms they were filling up, what kind of registers they were maintaining, and so what kind of Excels were there, what kind of reports they were bringing out. So it's like I can say a complete absorption process of the process itself, and then I could actually create a good sense of what the problems are in the current process and what kind of technologies we want to bring in. So yes, just simply resonated with my own view of knowing the business, knowing the customer, and getting a first-hand understanding of all the problems which are out there. So Dr. Boris, there are some, questions which I ask many of my, guests. You have answered actually most of them. So there was one on, the business IT relationship. There's this whole question of business IT relationship. So as you have stepped into the IT leadership role, how do you manage that? Because many a times there are conflicts, there are disagreements, there are conflicts. What you recommend is not something that will be acceptable by them. Many times, somebody has done some hard selling to them where they are like hung up on, I want this, right? And so how do you handle the conflicts and the disagreements aspects of managing the relationship with business?
Well, there are things you can solve and things you can't solve, right? At some point you have to say, okay, if I have a solution to offer and the one responsible for the business function doesn't want it, it doesn't help, then you don't do it. That can happen. But as I described earlier, those projects which become successful are those where the respective business leader takes the responsibility for the project, and IT is playing their role, but it's not in the driver's seat. And that leads to success because you talked about the ROI in your introduction. And honestly speaking, most companies are not able to measure that. So interesting to see how you get to 17%, but if you don't even have the ability to measure, how you figure it out, and that's true for most organizations. So there's a felt result. You believe it's a success, yes or no, but you can't really put it in numbers. That's true for most organizations across industries I've seen. And in that situation, it's even more important that those who are then responsible to deliver results in a project, which is then something like internal efficiency, or it is something like additional revenues, whatever it is, it's always business side being accountable for that. And if they are not in the driver's seat, it will not happen. So I kind of repeat myself here, but that's the key thing. And if you have a great idea about a project the organization really needs, but the organization doesn't want it to happen, well, don't try. You will fail. If you're not able to convince them, and I basically come back to what Tom Carney said, just let me repeat that second part of the sentence. Our capacity for convincing those in authority that it is good. And it doesn't matter if you are an IT manager internal or a consultant from the outside, if you don't manage to convince those in authority, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So I think I can thread it all together, as it's a golden word, I should say, capacity to convince those in authority. And I think that capacity to convince would come from your own in-depth knowledge, understanding, empathy of your own business function, what their problems are. Have you talked to enough people in that in that function? Do you know enough about them to be able to convince them? And I think it is very, very consistent with whatever I've heard from you today, Dr. Boris, that get out there, get in the trenches, get friendly with the soldiers, understand all their problems, and then only you are able to develop that point of view or that recommendation, with a good amount of capacity to convince those in authority, because they don't know that deep into the organization. They probably don't have the time to do that, right? So we have the questions are not ending, and we have, well, I just wanted to also repeat one of the things that you said, is that the ROI is always coming from business. the people for whom you're doing the project, they are accountable for getting the ROI. So you have to put them in the driver's seat. And something I told before in one of the ClarITea chats, and I can repeat it here, is that, we have to celebrate them when success comes. We have to put them on the pedestal. We have to celebrate them, and that motivates lot many more business managers and leaders to work with IT and create success. And yes, I fully agree with you. It's they who will use what you have done for them and create success. You cannot do that. So it's better to kind of be followers to them, even while doing whatever you can do. So probably I'm just conscious of the time here, so we'll take one last question from Vijay. Says, how do you evaluate a proposal from an IT vendor? Yeah, I mean, you can just bring some principles here, Dr. Boris, instead of getting into the specifics of success factors, etc.
Well, pretty straightforward, to be honest. The key thing is that you do understand before you start looking for a vendor what your requirements are, and most of them are functional. Non-functional are a hygiene factor, but the functional requirements make that difference. And I think the hardest part, Vijay, in that question is that it's not good enough to see a marketing presentation of SAP in that case, or IBM in your example, and then say, oh, what they tell me sounds about right. That's not good enough. Yeah, you need to really sit down and understand what you want from a system. And ideally, you are also able to foresee what you will want to do with the system in the not too far future. So how will it change your organization, and what will it do to your existing process landscape in particular? If you introduce something like success factors in your example here, and you have so far only local HR systems, what will happen to these local systems? Will they be replaced? Will they be amended? Will success factors help you harmonize your global HR processes? These kind of things you need to understand in the beginning. And if you have that understanding, and it will never be perfect, but it should be very reasonable, then you can go out and look at, okay, how do the various vendors actually support your use cases? That's it. And then comes all the non-functional stuff and the legal and the commercial, and you have it. And okay.
Yeah, I think very important. It is not good enough to give a good marketing presentation, but one part of it is from your side. Are you clear about what you want from technology, or are you like doing it as some sort of a vanity project that I have? Everybody else is doing success factors, so I'm also doing success factors. Many times it happens that way, and sometimes it happens not from the IT side, but it's a business leader who looks at other business leaders in other organizations, his peer group, and says that I also need to do that. So I have come across that kind of situation, and then of course we had that chat. What kind of KPIs we want to improve, what kind of processes we want to transform, and all of that. But yeah, sometimes it's our job to bring that clarity. And very importantly, from a partner point of view, how well you understand the customer's pain points or the customer's objectives. I think that has more importance than just the features and your own marketing stuff. So that brings us towards the end of the ClarITea Chat today with Dr. Boris Piwinger. Thank you, everyone. I'm just bringing up your thank yous here. Parthasarthi, Manish, Deepak. There are 2 Deepaks out there. And yes, a big thank you to everyone for attending this and asking some really nice questions and bringing out, some more pearls of wisdom from Dr. Boris. And thank you so much, Dr. Boris, for taking out time for ClarITea Chat and being with us here.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone, and a good afternoon, Dr. Boris. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.